So when we talk about an inclusive economy, we're talking about one that includes and those who are marginalized in communities, in cultures, in societies, in governance, those who are most precarious, so low income, and not necessarily, those who are in the sort of poor in absolute terms, but also really importantly, relative poverty. So we work as much in Europe as we do in Africa and India and other parts of the world. That really, for us, an inclusive economy is one that is delivering value for a much more inclusive, a much broader set of stakeholders, not primarily focused on, delivering value to investors and to owners of capital and of companies. We're not deep socialists, but we absolutely believe that our economic system will only be sustainable if we improve the way it can create value for a much broader set of human beings, and it's so far proven itself capable of doing. We're actually, it's an interesting moment for us because we're going through a bit of a transition where our past has been very much as a consulting company. So we have worked with corporate companies, with corporates, with large companies, to improve how they do business, primarily in the first and last mile of their operations. So the first mile would be, where do they get their supplies from? A lot of raw material or other supplies, but who are they engaging as suppliers, and can they be a more nuanced and more strategic about how they use their procurement to create positive impact, primarily social, so income benefits, primarily in that arena. And then the last mile, that's more focused on how they engage low-income, precarious consumers. So if they have a product or a service that is valuable to those consumers, how do they do that in a way that is inclusive? How do they improve that value proposition for those types of consumers or buyers or users? But then also kind of that once, one step closer in the value chain, if you like, to our typical client, is also in the way that they distribute and sell. Can they be more inclusive? Can they create broader set of opportunities within their kind of sales and distribution operations to, again, create interesting opportunities for the informal sector, for micro entrepreneurs, small businesses, et cetera, that might be able to engage. But these companies are part of what makes them good at being really huge and generally multinational is that they're experts at standardization. They do what they do very well, and they do it as close to the same as they can everywhere, which is the opposite of what makes the informal sector, a generator of a majority of value in a lot of countries, and certainly a majority of employment in a lot of countries, in that it is inherently agile. It is inherently bespoke and customized to not the city level, to not the kind of sub district level, but to like the individual block sometimes, or that really smallest unit of community, and that's what makes them really interesting, because you have these, they're arguably at the two ends of the spectrum, kind of corporate, big company and informal sector. But when they can come together, when we create that connective tissue and the strategies and the operational processes to have them work together really well, the benefits are massive, because you have the scalability and the kind of the safety parameters, et cetera, of the big company working with that kind of agility of the informal sector. So that's quite often how we're operating. The transition we're going through now is one from thinking of ourselves and acting as a consulting firm, which is very much at the service of its clients, to thinking of ourselves as an accelerator agency. And that shift for us is one that's been happening. We've been working more and more often with social enterprise, with foundations, with development organizations. And so we find ourselves actually more often and more attracted to working on the mission of delivering an inclusive economy than delivering that which the client, has sort of contracted us for. We're still operating to deliver value to our clients, and we wouldn't have a business if we didn't do that. But we want that kind of inclusive economy movement to be at the core of what we do, and we can work more flexibly with a variety of players to deliver that. I think a lot of the times there's sort of the theory of, engage with everybody and co-create with everybody. The fact is, co-creation is really difficult, can be extremely time consuming. And there's a reason that companies kind of dip their toe into it and then go, oh my God, no, like, let's go back to the lab. We'll just do it ourselves. And so I think we're quite often working with our partners on helping them understand that ecosystem and prioritize who to engage with when, and then working with them to understand those stakeholders really, really well, so that they can tap into them. And we've developed actual methodologies around how can you run a more participatory kind of market research and understanding process that does have feedback loops, that isn't kind of a go in, extract data and information, work with it, and then come back with something, but has more kind of loops within it that we're able to get feedback on a more regular basis. And so a lot of what we do is help our clients kind of understand that ecosystem, develop prototypes, either in concert with and kind of in a co-creation fashion with the entities, the communities, the players they're trying to work with, or just develop really minimum viable, product or MVP, so that they can then go back more often to those communities and test those things. And then through that process, you actually find yourself with an offering that can then scale. And so we run this process of, understanding, prototyping, testing, and then creating those processes and that kind of embedding and activation process within the client as well. It is something that requires a long time. Even in the best of scenarios, it takes longer to do something in a group than it does to do something individually. Your outcome is better. So the overall process to get to a positive outcome, or something that actually works and delivers value, I think you're going to get actually to that endpoint faster with a co-creation methodology. But it takes longer to get to some of those interim milestones, which quite often are what people are really focused on. So I think time is a really important element. And then the trust piece is really critical, in terms of, it moves away from a very transactional arm's distance relationship and moves towards a partnership. And even that word partnership has become very difficult to use, because it means sometimes extremely thin relationships. What I'm talking about are real true partnerships, where there's a shared experience, there's a shared mission, shared objectives, and a shared understanding of the challenges. It's not sort of oh, everything's going to be fine, we're just going to partner and make things happen. It's like, no, this is going to be hard, and we may not get to our objective. Like, these are really difficult issues that we're dealing with, and 80% of new businesses fail. And we're not trying to just do a new business that can pay the rent. We're trying to make a new business that pays the rent and delivers value in social benefits and all these other things. So it's that much more difficult. So I think that the trust element of being able to engage on the journey of co-creation between different parties and companies, communities, NGO partners, social sector, public sector, whoever needs to be at that table, that trust element is really critical, and quite often one that takes a long time. I mean, the projects we've worked on where it works were multi-year projects, which is not how we sell them to clients who are trying to get something done really quickly. But that's the reality of it.